Okay, we are going live in 1, 2, and 3. And hi, everyone. This is SchreckTeck, episode number 43. I'm Zanotti, and wherever you are, I hope you're having a great day. Now, Gina's not here today. We've got somebody just as pretty and cute, and Gina's going to kill me later, of course. But with us is Neen James. Hey, Neen, how are you?
G'day, it's great to be here. There's big stilettos to fill on behalf of the gorgeous Gina Schreck.
Big stilettos. 5-inch stilettos.
I know.
Anyway, Neen is joining us today, and she's been on the show before. Neen is always a pleasure to have on. And Neen, we've got a guest today.
We have. I am so excited about our guest because recently at a massive conference for meeting professionals, I gave a huge shout out to Dan and his fabulous product. So I'm excited to hear a little bit more about it from him.
And with us is Dan Gellert from... Is it GateGuru, the name of the company?
GateGuru.
GateGuru. Now, that's a great name. At first, I was going, what's a gate? Why is he a guru of a gate? And then I saw the app, and I went, cool. This is really cool. Tell us a little bit about what the app you created.
Awesome. Well, first off, thanks very much for having me here. GateGuru was created in December of 2009, and really the background behind it was I was a venture capitalist at the time. I was spending a lot of time in airports, and quite frankly, the experience that I was having in airports just flat out sucked. And so
kind of a normal experience in an airport.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty dissatisfying. And one experience in particular, I was in West Palm Airport. Actually, I was down there for work. Ended up not eating all day, going to the airport, and asked myself the question that any traveler who's ever been in an airport has asked themselves. Do I eat before or after security? There was a decent-looking pub. Ended up going through security, trying to get something near my gate. I go to my gate, and there's a Burger King and a pizza place. Fairly dejected at that point because it was clear that the pub was my best option. And go to the pizza place, and it was literally the worst pizza I've ever had. And so, I just said it was one of those instances where I said there's got to be a better way. And I, decided to create a better way, and that was the first iteration of GateGuru, which we got some great press at launch in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and at that point it was most often compared as Yelp for the airport.
No, that's great. And, it's interesting because when we started looking at it, in fact, let me play a little video that we have, and this is, for those watching, about a 1.5-year-old, maybe 2-year-old video. This is the original launch of the product. The product has been updated since, but I was a little slow in getting the right video. So here we go. It's running right now. You guys can probably see it. This does all sorts of things. It tells you what restaurants are around. You can review restaurants. What else does it do?
Yeah, so the initial version, as I mentioned, Yelp for the airport, we got some great momentum after releasing that, and ultimately, we've evolved the product and the vision quite a bit. It's our goal not just to be an app to help people figure out what's in the airport or where things are in the airport, but we really want to help travelers reinvent their day of travel experience. So over the past 2 years now, we've added to the functionality very significantly in terms of users now can go into the app and update and view security wait times, for instance. So you can figure out, okay, is the current security wait time 10 minutes or 40 minutes? What time should I leave for the airport? Is security line A faster than security line B? And all of that kind of information around security. The latest version, which we just released about 6 weeks ago, added itinerary management and flight tracking. So now all of a sudden a traveler has access to what gate is my flight leaving out of, what is my flight delayed, is there a gate change, all of that information where travelers right now are walking around looking for a monitor or really at the mercy of the airlines telling them information. GateGuru really democratizes that process and puts the power of information in front of the traveler's hands versus the old system, which travelers were kind of looking for information on their own, or the information was held behind various gatekeepers such as airlines or airports or something like that.
That's great. It's a great aggregator of just important travel information, because anybody who's traveled in the last, probably 11 years or so knows that traveling sucks. It's not what it used to be. It's absolutely gross.
One of my favorite features, I think, is the gate changes that has saved me so many times, Dan, I can't even tell you. There's a question that's in the chat room, Dan, and that was, is it only available in the US right now?
Yeah, so we're working really hard at expanding our airport coverage international. So you can kind of break it up into two different parts. On the flight tracking, that covers airports worldwide. So to a commenter's point, obviously, to have flight tracking information, real-time updates, you need to have a data connection. So that's certainly something to be cognizant of. And I know a lot of travelers obviously are weary of turning on their data connections. But so to get that information, that's worldwide. You need a data connection. The airport database, we currently cover 140 airports, of which about 90 are in the U.S., so about 50 international airports covering Europe, Asia, Canada predominantly. And for those, that information is pre-seeded into the database. You don't need an internet connection. You don't need to turn on your data plan to access that information, specifically around amenity information within airports. And if you guys have ever been to an international airport, that is probably the hardest thing about navigating a foreign country is the airport itself. So having no idea where things are.
Right.
And GateGuru, really from our user base, they've talked about the positives of having that information right in the power of their hands a lot of times.
So as an Aussie, I'm always heading back to Oz and doing those international trips. So can you give maybe some of the viewers some ideas on how you can use the app even more productively? Because obviously that's my focus.
Yep. Yeah, that certainly sounds great. So the scene that we like to certainly paint is something along the lines of a day or two before your flight, you enter your flight information into GateGuru, and then automatically that flight is monitored proactively or reactively actually for you. So all of a sudden, anytime there's a gate change or a delay or a change in the departure time, GateGuru pushes notifications to you. How I like to do it is about 3 hours before my flight, I would start to look at GateGuru, see what people are saying about the security wait times, and then that helps guide me in terms of figuring out what time I should leave for the airport. And then at that point, once I get a feel, okay, the current security wait time is 10 minutes or 30 minutes, I'm adjusting my departure time for the airport accordingly, and I'm also checking in on the flight status feature to make sure that my flight's still on time. GateGuru will notify me through push notifications, but at the same time, I'm just pretty detailed oriented, micromanaged like that. So I like to check back a lot. Once I get to the airport, I know the approximate security wait time. I kind of look at GateGuru one last time on that angle to see which security line I should go to if there are a couple of different checkpoints, because oftentimes one checkpoint will be 5 minutes, the other one will be 25 minutes, and I would much rather have that 20 minutes post-security to look at GateGuru, find what the best food option is in the airport, and where I should buy my news and gifts. So get through security, I'm on GateGuru, figuring out the best food or the best shop, and even if I have a longer layover, I'm looking for where the airline lounges are within GateGuru, and specifically, I have a status on Continental and United, so if I'm in O'Hare, there'll be 4 or 5 different lounges, and I kind of look for the best one, especially if I have a longer time. Cool. I know that GateGuru's monitoring my flight, and so once it's actually sending me a push notification to say, hey Dan, your flight's scheduled to depart in 30 minutes. You should be at your gate now because boarding has probably commenced. And so at that point, I use GateGuru go to my gate, and I actually have my wife kind of monitoring my flight status from her phone as well, and she knows when to pick me up from the airport at that time based on that information.
So there's a couple of really nice tips on ways you can save time, doing it a couple of days before loading your flight details, making sure that you check a few hours before your flight on the day so that it can then send you those push notifications, especially through security. But I also like the idea of adding your team members to track it as well. So if you have an assistant, a family member, or maybe your virtual assistant who can also give you some information and also help pick you up. Yep. I wonder, Dan, if you could just maybe share with us, how has the app kind of evolved as users have got more and more involved in giving you feedback about it?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. And, when I first launched the app, I certainly didn't think that it would, it's our goal and our vision is to be much like how travelers use TripAdvisor for planning travel. We are building GateGuru to be the dominant app for every traveler every time you're traveling. And so it's certainly our goal over the next year to really build out the functionality so that a lot of the information that I'm checking now comes in a more in a more proactive way going forward. So it's certainly our goal a year from now to be able to say, hey, Neen, based on flight status information, security wait times, parking availability at the airport, and traffic and driving directions, you should be leaving for the airport in 30 minutes, regardless of if that's 2 hours before your flight because everything's smooth, or 4 hours before your flight because there's been some sort of security breach and you need to get to the airport early, or long-term or short-term parking is full, so you need to park at long-term parking. Having that access to information is really a reinvention of how people experience their day of travel versus right now, I'm kind of at the mercy of, I show up to the airport and I have no idea if that security line is going to be long or short. I'm basically at the mercy of the airline and the airport, and I have no information. And really, it's our goal to bring a seamless platform to travelers on their day of travel to really, quite frankly, transform the way people experience their day of travel.
So, Dan, one of my favorite apps was AutoPark because it helps me, especially with the amount that I travel, know exactly where I'm located. Do you see that this app might even be able to incorporate some of those elements as well?
So what does AutoPark do?
AutoPark just tells me things like where I've parked. It tracks meters. And when you incorporate that, the reason I do it is because I fly so much. My office always knows I park on the 3rd level. But I usually plug it into AutoPark because when I'm coming home from a red eye, the last thing I want to be trying to remember was where my car was parked.
Yeah, yes, that's certainly a great point. Adding that kind of functionality as we bring in parking availability into the application, adding that type of functionality is very natural to what we would be in the app. And we do a lot of customer development interviews, so talking with our users, getting a better understanding of how they're using the application, what they like, what they don't like. And it's very clear, almost universally amongst our user base, that travelers want a one-stop shop for their day of travel. They don't want to be negotiating between 5 or 6 different applications, and this one does my parking, and this one does my flight status, and this one does where I find food in airports. So there's a ton of demand for a universal kind of one-stop shop app for travelers, and that's ultimately what we're building.
Nice. Really nice.
Now, out of curiosity, you guys have both traveled a lot. What are some of your favorite airports?
Oh, what a good question.
I would say that for me, a couple of favorite airports, certainly JFK and Terminal 5. That is an experience unlike any other.
Is that the newer terminal?
So that's the newest terminal. That's the JetBlue terminal.
Yeah, that is a nice one.
Amazing food. One of my favorite meals actually in all of New York City is their sushi place, which if you thought about that 5 or 6 years ago, that would have been thought of as a crazy idea. I also like an airport like Newark Terminal C. Again, one of the nearby hubs for us. But again, just the amenities that they provide, and they also have a couple of different security checkpoints. So again, I leverage GateGuru before leaving for the airport there, and I say, okay, should I be going through security checkpoint 2 or 1, and kind of find the most efficient path through. And then the third that I'll say, and I'll turn it over to Neen, quite frankly, is SFO and Terminal 2 over there. And I would say also Houston International Airport, Terminal E. Again, great shopping, never too long of a security line, and they just do a great job in making you feel like it's really a natural and inviting airport.
Neen, what do you like?
Well, obviously, I'm partial to Sydney Airport because the shopping is amazing, the food is fantastic, and it's nice and light. So obviously that, if for any of our viewers who get a chance to go down under, that's definitely one of my favorites. In the US, I really like Denver Airport, and part of the reason for that is, okay, I should tell you, there's one thing I hate about Denver Airport, and that's that hideous blue horse statue with the evil eyes at the front. I hate that. But inside the airport, what I love is it's really open and it's easy to get through security. They have an enormous amount of different places that you can go through, so I really like that. The other thing I like about it is that it has healthy food options, and Dan, I know that's really important to you, and that's one of the things I love about your app. So I love that airport. What I find in the US is that the more light that I can see in an airport, the more natural light, the more comfortable I feel. And some airports, I mean, I fly out of Philadelphia a lot, and it's probably one of my least favorites. The ceilings feel low, people don't really want to be there, the security lines are long, and it's an old airport and it's really tired. And so I think that when you can incorporate natural light, people feel better, and I believe when people feel healthier and they're eating healthier, they definitely feel more productive.
Yeah, and it's really interesting how dark some airports are. Now, you wonder, wait a minute, you're talking about security, so you darken it up. That makes sense.
Right.
It's just mindless. And if you're traveling, you want to be able to see where you're going. There are some that are just really dark. It's like nighttime at all times, and you just go, that makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah,
and that's a great point. It's amazing how much light matters to improving your overall mental state when going through an airport. Like an airport that's light and cheery just seems so much more pleasant than one that's dark with low ceilings.
Yeah, I remember flying out of National about 2-3 years ago, and we left at about 5 in the morning. It was pitch black in there. It has high ceilings, but who cares? You can't see them. It was just really dark. And I was going, this doesn't make sense. I mean, why would you want to? In the daylight, it looks okay. But at night, it's just, there isn't enough lighting in there.
Yeah.
American Airlines in L.A. is the same way. They had a really nice terminal once. Now they redid it to make it more modern, I guess, and you can't see anything until you get in. Once you get past security, all of a sudden, hey, there's light again. It doesn't make sense to make check-in a dark area.
Yeah. I think in general, though, this is one of the things that we certainly get excited about is really the reinvention of airports in general.
Yeah.
And how they're going from this model where it was basically a place where travelers arrived at the airport as late as possible, got through security, and just walked head down to their gate. And that was it. That was our only real interaction.
I really wish we would go back to the old days of security just being quick. You don't have to take your shoes off. You don't have all the BS that really doesn't do much. It's just like, what a waste. That's the part I hate about traveling the most right now, going through TSA.
That's definitely amongst
it would be nice if people actually enjoyed their role. I think what would be really neat, Rick, is if we could also talk about a couple more productivity tips that would keep people really focused while they're on the road as well. And I've recently at PCMA, I was asked to do a session on all my favorite travel apps that keep you really productive. And so what we decided to do was to talk about apps that keep you productive, not just about travel. And I know Gina would agree with me, but I've got to tell you that one of my most favorite apps when it comes to being out anywhere is Dropbox, because Dropbox is such a brilliant resource for my team to be able to use. And when you're working on a lot of products and projects, it's a fantastic app. So if you don't have it, I would highly recommend that you download it on everything. And I know Gina would agree with that. Dan, as far as keeping access to files when you're out and about, what's your favorite app?
No, I think that you nailed it on the head. Dropbox is really revolutionary, and it's an amazing way to have access to all my files regardless of where I am. either both on my iPhone as well as on my laptop.
Right. Another one that Larry has mentioned on the chat room, and I know Gina, this is one of her favorite apps. She did a session on it at the same conference where we were both speaking, and that's Evernote. Evernote is so clever in the way that it can capture so many different things. I saw a great tip from Donna Gellert, and she runs most training. She said to take a photo of your luggage if you've checked it, and then be able to send that to yourself on Evernote. What a great idea. So I thought that was a really neat travel tip as well. There's so many ways to be productive when you're on the road. Dan, have you got any other tips besides obviously using GateGuru for people to stay productive when they're traveling?
Yeah, I mean, I think that first of all, the notion of Wi-Fi on the plane has really changed productivity for travelers in a pretty broad way. So all of a sudden, I fly a lot from JFK to San Francisco. Previously, that was 6 hours of just dead time. And while that was great on one instance, so that I could catch up on some reading, really it was quite hard to be away from email, and it almost made that daytime trip back from San Francisco to New York impossible, because I essentially lose a day of work. And so I'd always take the red eye. Now I can actually take a daytime trip, leveraging Wi-Fi on a lot of these airlines. And so, I love something like Hipmonk or Kayak when booking to identify which airlines or which flights specifically have Wi-Fi. And quite frankly, that has changed. I'm much more willing to pay $25 or $50 extra for a flight that has Wi-Fi, especially on a cross-country flight, than one that does not. So I think that is a big productivity tip that I use when traveling.
Nice. I often share with my clients that when it comes to especially those long trips, I often take the trip across to work on things for my client and my business, especially when you're doing a cross-country like that. But on the way back, I often use the trip for my own benefit. So it could be to read a book or to catch up on some personal things. So another productivity tip is to divide your trip. On the way out, do things for your client and the growth of your business. But on the way back, do something for you. So whether it's reading a book, it might also be writing thank you notes or writing notes to people that are really important to you. I believe that time in the air can be phenomenally productive with a little bit of preparation. So one thing I always do is I carry stamped stationery in my travel bag, and the reason is no one writes thank you notes anymore, and it's a really nice thing to be able to do, to pop a note in the mail to someone to thank them for the connection you had, the dinner you shared, or at the networking event, some of the information that you shared. I believe in an electronic age like we have now, everything's digital, and one of the ways to stand out is to write a thank you note to someone. And when you do it on the road, it doesn't feel like it's taking extra time, because it's another easy way to spend time and invest time when you're flying. So how are we doing for time, Rick? I told
We're
Gina I would
doing pretty well.
We've got end on time. How are we doing?
4 more minutes of official show, and usually we run way past that, so we're doing very well.
Cool.
Okay, Neen, for all those who don't know, Neen is a productivity expert, and this is her website right here, neenjames.com. And I always feel like I'm slacking when I'm with Neen, but...
It's hard to keep up with.
It's really hard to keep up with.
Go to the website and check out the blog. There is actually a whole article about my favorite apps that will keep you productive on the road. One of the things I think is essential when we travel so much, Dan, it sounds like you would agree with this, is not only that, but how we stay healthy on the road. And food when we're there, but also too we have to think about keeping our energy high when we're on the road. One of my favorites is MyFitnessPal, which tracks food and exercise. It has a million entries of what things are worth as far as calories, if you count calories, but it keeps you on track as well. Have you got any great app suggestions for people to stay healthy while they're traveling?
So not to tout GateGuru again, but certainly a lot of our readers, and we get a lot of press coverage specifically around the healthy aspect to GateGuru. So finding food within airports that's actually healthy, so you're not settling for that McDonald's all of a sudden you know all of your options and really what's available to you versus just settling for whatever you see and hoping that it's the best. I certainly think that also, while not on the app front, the leveraging that dead time in the airport. So it could be something as simple as walking around the airport to get that exercise, and you'd be amazed at how many calories get burned by walking around the airport and carrying your luggage.
Gate changes are good for that.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other thing is specifically around airports. A lot of airports actually have gyms nowadays, and so that's a great way. Certainly, O'Hare Airport, for instance, within the Hilton Hotel, there's a great gym there. And I once had a 3-hour layover, spent 2 hours working out at that gym. It cost $15 or something like that for a day pass, and it's an amazing way to stay healthy on the road. And then just the other tip that I have is just packing a lot of snacks so that, to your exact point, Neen, around making sure that you always have energy and not really getting to that point where you're crazed with hunger so that you are thinking about, oh, that McDonald's will really taste good. But instead, you're always you have the appropriate amount of food, and you're just making smart decisions while on the road.
That would be my wife.
The McDonald's person.
Crazed for hunger, yes.
Okay.
I always make sure that my bag, every travel bag I have, is packed with almonds and some kind of bar. Like I love some of the gluten-free bars that I use. So,
all the slow proteins that fill you up and you don't have to eat all the time. Yep.
Yeah, but I love the tip about the gym. What a great idea. That is a really cool idea. One of my friends is Rory Vaden. He has a great book called Take the Stairs. And his philosophy is about taking the stairs instead of the escalator. And I always have his voice in the back of my head when I see an escalator or a set of stairs. And I figure every set of stairs that you get to travel, especially with your luggage, it's kind of like weightlifting in some of those airports if you're like me and won't check bags. But it's another easy way to stay fit and productive when you're on the road.
Well, it's also really funny how most people want to sit waiting. They want to sit here. They want to sit, and then they're going to sit for another 5 or 10 hour flight. And you just go, move, do something, get yourself tired before you're on the plane. That way, when you're on the plane, you're more relaxed.
So in the chat room, we're talking about people and the gym. I guess, well, I'm hoping, Dan, that people use the showers in the gym as well, so they're not smelly for the next 5 hours that you're sitting beside them.
Yeah, exactly. That's certainly a tip for your fellow travelers. That day of travel certainly gets filled with anxiety, and the last thing that you need is to be sitting on the plane and find out that there's a person that just worked out of the gym that sits next to you.
That could be a good one.
That's a little too close to comfort.
Now, I'll tell you, one time I had the worst flight on earth. I was flying from Hawaii back to L.A. I was on a 747, and I figured, oh, great, I'm going to get a window seat. Bad choice. The window door actually comes out about a foot into your seat. So I go, I now have part of a seat or part of a window in front of me. And I'm looking at these two people heading towards me. I went, oh, no, please, not them. Oh, no. And sure enough, they were both at least 400, if not 450 pounds.
Yep.
And the lady sat next to me, mostly on me, but kind of next to me. The man next to her. And eating was really fun because the elbows were constantly in my face. I was going, it was the worst 5 hours. I tried to go into a trance, something to just fade it out. It was... what a flight. 5 hours of and there was no place to move.
Yeah, and
I always use GateGuru for all my flights, especially international. So that is a great tip, I think, for people who travel a lot, is to be able to find it. So do you have that functionality yet, Dan? Am I saying something that I shouldn't?
Yeah, no, we do not have the GateGuru functionality yet. At some point, you could see that being integrated into the GateGuru application. But I think that's a great point, Neen. We're huge fans of GateGuru. Again, another indispensable service when booking my flight, because the last thing that I want is if I'm on a 6-hour cross-country flight and I figure out that I'm on a plane where this seat doesn't recline. That is just a horrible way to start off a flight. And so, we use GateGuru a lot, and a lot of our users do as well.
You would hate me, Dan. I'm the guy who puts his hand in front of the seat, so when the guy reclines, he can't move it. Because usually, especially if you're on a small flight, there's no room.
Yeah, no, totally hear you. And there's That's the equivalent of a political hotbed topic debate amongst the travel community.
Yes.
Should you recline or not?
Yeah, I mean, you want to, but there's no room on some of these flights.
Right.
I've literally had to tell people, could you please bring your seat up? I can't lift my drink up to even get a drink. There's no room on some of the planes, so it's really rather interesting. And I'm not that tall. I'm 6'2". My son-in-law is 6'5". He can't even move on a plane. He just sits there. He's completely locked in place.
So I'm conscious of time, Rick, and we have one final question because I know it's time to wrap it up. But one of the chat rooms was asking how can they find out what times of year are the most productive times of year to travel? I guess I would just add a couple of things first. If you have choice about when you're traveling, look at calendars to avoid school holidays.
Yes.
School vacations, you call it here in the US. And also be aware, there are some rules that my office has. For example, I try never to fly into O'Hare in the summer or in the dead of winter. So think about if you're trying to get productive and look at times of year to travel, avoid the times, the obvious ones in the US, like Thanksgiving. If you can avoid it, I don't know how some of you would. But Dan, do you think there's any other final tips for the people that are watching on times of year that are more productive to travel?
Yeah, Neen, I think that you hit the nail on the head. If you can avoid travel during the holiday season, especially November to December, as well as August, and if you happen to be traveling those times, just put on a different frame of mind, I would say, than your normal travel. Things aren't going to be as efficient. There's going to be a lot of kids in the airport, and maybe just have slightly more patience when dealing with the travel during those times. But again, you made another point where I try to not fly out of or into O'Hare at night, because it's just one of those airports where planes get stacked and stacked and stacked, and if you're flying at night in or out of O'Hare, you're bound to be delayed, if not canceled. And so if I'm in or out of O'Hare, I try to do it first flight or as early in the morning as possible.
Any news on the legislation to make kids travel as cargo yet?
One day.
One day, hopefully, right?
Well, Rick, I want to honor time, and I know we could talk to Dan and you all day on lots of different ways to stay productive, but as a productivity expert, I want to make sure I honor everyone's time.
She's tough.
She's from all over the world. Dan, you have been an amazing guest. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm excited to see how GateGuru kind of evolves as well with the integration of some of these other functions. And thank you so much for being part of it. Rick, you've done a brilliant job today. Thanks for keeping us on track. And
no problem.
Sure
and for those who want GateGuru, it runs on iPhone and Android, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And you can get more information at our website, GateGuru app, GateGuru.com. Free app, download it in the App Store or the Android market.
Yeah, it's a must-have. Gotta agree. Neen, as always, a pleasure. We will see you next time. And
it's a pleasure to serve. And Gina, thanks for trusting me with your show.
Oh, no problem at all. Totally trustworthy. Anyway, and Dan, thanks a lot for being here. We will see you next time, too. Hopefully, we'll meet up on one of these gates.
Yeah, love the show. Thank you guys for having me.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys. And for everyone in the chat room, thanks for being there. And we will see you guys next week. Thanks a lot. Okay, we are still